with LK Formación, tailor-made solutions for your business. Well, I hope you're all doing very well after the weekend. It is Monday, but we're going to get in, we're going to be positive, we're going to try and learn some business English, but at the same time, keep it nice and relaxed and not too heavy because it is just 8:30 in the morning anyway where I am. First things first, it is Coffee Morning with James. Let's have our coffee. Do you remember what the name of this was? A mug. So this is like a Christmas mug, it seems. So a nice big Christmas mug with my coffee to keep me alert. How was your weekend? How did everything go? I hope it was good. I hope you had time to relax. Did you do a lot of activities? Did you stay at home? Do you feel I was talking to my wife, and it's our anniversary today. Happy anniversary to my wife, Beto. I love you. And we were talking anyway, and we were talking about the pressure some people feel to enjoy themselves on the weekend. Or maybe it's not a pressure, just a kind of cultural thing. Do you, in your culture, is it something that you feel I have to do something on the weekend? Because where I'm from, in the north, the weather is not always the best, let's say, and often people just enjoy spending time at home. And sometimes we have this expression, which is to veg. And to veg means to vegetate, just lie there on the sofa, nice and cozy. The weather is not great outside and you just watch TV, relax, read. Whereas in some other places, you might be forced, in a sense, to go and do something. And especially now in the age of social media, where we are, perhaps a lot of people feel expected to update their social media, provide photos. They need to go places and take photos. I am enjoying my life. Maybe upload it here onto LinkedIn, or one of the platforms I'm streaming to. The typical ones, Instagram, Facebook. Let me know in your country, what is it like? Where I'm from, you can just chill on the weekend and relax. Let me talk to you about what I'm going to look at today. I want to look at what's going on just briefly in the headlines. And in order to help you with your English skills, obviously you're going to be listening to me, pronunciation, some idioms. Let me run through what I have here. So I'm going to look at some things from the news. After that, I'm going to use what we talked about in the last class, how to introduce a presentation. So first of all, I will start off with a news roundup. Then I'll move on to 5 things you should not put on your resume, or 5 things you should not put on your CV. Of course, it's subjective, so you let me know if you agree or disagree. Leaving your hair go grey. Okay, so this is mainly an article focused on women, but also will bring men into it. English idioms that you are going to be using in the workplace. I found that after all. Money. We'll be talking about money and how the British people view money. So coming from an article I read over the weekend about how French people view money, I'll mention that, but also how British people view money. Then we'll move on to, I want to take a look at 8 tips for meetings. We'll keep it brief, not too long. So if you have a meeting today, perhaps you can try one. And then we're going to look at using a different language instead of using the typical basic language. We'll try and make it sound a bit more businessy. So I want to look at that, and then we'll have, if there are any questions, I will be looking at those questions towards the end of the stream. So let's go. And I wanted to look at this article that I read, and it was about things that you shouldn't put on your CV anymore, okay? Sorry, I'm after skipping. I need to do the news roundup. Let me minimize here, okay? And then we'll look at that, okay? Let's quickly see what was in the news while we were sleeping. I'm going to minimize myself here. And I'm going to start by looking at what was happening here. Demonstrations in Paris, Brazil. Rohingya, the news of the night. Okay, so a demonstration is probably like a protest. Manifestación. The French left is trying to regain the initiative by demonstrating in Paris. The march against high prices and climate inaction, which brought together tens of thousands of people in Paris on Sunday, had been planned long before the strikes by a coalition of left-wing parties eager to take advantage of the crisis in the cost of life to assert itself in the main opposition force. Okay, so this is something affecting us all in Europe. The price of energy, the price of electricity. I was on myself just this weekend because I cannot believe the price of our electricity bill. We are, I believe, in this household, and we say household, it means the family that lives in the home. So in this household, I don't believe that we are excessive with our energy. I don't believe that we are turning on things left, right, and center. That is a good expression, left, right, and center, all over the place. I think we're normal. I think we turned the lights off. You know, we're not too bad. We don't have a lot of things going outside. Anyway, because we moved recently, and I noticed the jump in the electricity bill because of new measures by the government. And as far as I'm aware, I was made aware, I should know, there's a new tax of €40 here in Spain added onto your electricity bill. You can let me know. I heard it's just until May, but it's €40 just on top of what you're paying. And honestly, it's scandalous. In one sense, the government is giving people handouts, which is money, giving handouts for petrol into your car, gas or petrol. But on the other hand, taking it back from everybody else in their electricity bills. So I'm not surprised in the rest of Europe. The same thing is happening. The prices are being hiked. To be hiked is to be increased. And it's causing a lot of people to eventually take to the streets and demonstrate. So that's what they did in Paris. Moving on to the next story, it's Lula and Bolsonaro squared. These are the present president and the ex-president of Brazil. They are fighting to become the next president. So to square off is kind of like this, to square off like ready for battle. The two Brazilian presidential candidates called each other liars during the first debate of the second round of elections. Lula, stop lying, a man of your age, launched the far-right president. Bolsonaro, 67, during the first minutes. You are the king of false information, the king of stupidity, retorted Lula, 76. So these two guys really don't like each other, and I suppose when people watch a television debate, it kind of, Donald Trump changed the game a bit by his character, and I think these guys have taken this game, brought it up a level, and they're just insulting each other now. So those guys will be, I think, on October 30th, they will have the elections. Despite the harsh speeches, the mood was generally measured, which means controlled, measured, with the two keeping their voices low, sketching wry smiles, avoiding aggression, and heading towards the cameras to speak to voters. Okay, a wry smile is like, if you can watch my face, it's a wry smile is like, it's a slight smile, kind of like, what you're thinking, a wry smile. You read it, it's quite literary English. Okay, and finally, two Rohingya camp leaders killed in Bangladesh. A group of a dozen of people hacked to death two leaders of the Rohingya community on Saturday in Bangladesh. As security deteriorates in camps that are home to nearly 1 million refugees. So these are the refugees from Myanmar, and they fled they fled to neighboring countries, and they are being targeted by militia. Okay, so that's what's going on. Other news I haven't had time to read this morning. Let me go up here for a second. Greece and Turkey blame each other after discovery of 92 naked migrants at their border. That's just shocking. That is Greece and Turkey, with the migrants coming from Syria, Afghanistan, coming through Turkey. And of course, Europe has paid money to these countries, and specifically Turkey, to keep the migrants in their country. From Germany, the French health system is knocked out. That means the French health system is not doing well. At work, equality also means grey hair. So this is what I wanted to look at, but I will look at it over here. So I want to get your take on this. This is something that has always been held as, well, it's in the news now, where women are deciding not to dye their hair. And this comes from when the pandemic started, coronavirus, and women were at home. We were all at home, and we couldn't go outside and go to the barber for men or the hairstylist for women. So a barber is for men and a hairstylist. We couldn't go out, we couldn't cut our hair. We're at home and our hair is growing. And a lot of women in this case got used to it and decided to let their hair go naturally grey. So they didn't intervene. And normally what you put in your hair is a hair dye. D-Y-E, a hair dye. This is considered quite normal for women to do. It seems like it's a social pressure. Women have done this for a long time, or it's a social norm. However, women are deciding now to let it go naturally grey and take it on. But I want to know, from your point of view, it might be seen in your industry that it's preferable to have women who look younger. An example would be where we have a woman presenting the news, for example, in media, and it's better for her to dye her hair to look more, and in this way what it's saying is she's more presentable, she looks younger. It's not seen well to have grey hair, because then you are old, you are past it. And this seems to be common. Whereas with men, this what we call salt and pepper look, because you have the grey mixed with the dark hair. We call it salt and pepper look for both men and women. It's seen as a bit more, maybe, I don't know. Okay, on the one hand for men as well, you have that they're getting old, they're getting past it, but also a bit more maybe sophisticated. You have the idea of George Clooney letting his hair go grey, salt and pepper. He looks more sophisticated, charming. But with women, it's like, oh no, we can't. Especially in the film industry, you're gone. Maybe there are a few exceptions, like Helen Mirren, for example. But for most women in the film industry, it's already very, very sexist in that industry towards women. But when the grey hair comes in, it's game over. I wanted to know your opinions on that. There is an article in here from the New York Times talking about this. And let's have a quick look at some of the comments in here. Maria Hurd, 54, examines her new profile picture. Her curly hair has turned grey and is no longer dyed blonde. This is an interesting thing, because I think this is like the only word in the English language. I could be wrong, okay? I can always be wrong. But I think it's one of the only words in the English language, blonde, B-L-O-N-D-E. And that signifies a woman, and for a man, it's B-L-O-N-D. So I was told, and I'm not entirely sure because I'm too lazy to look it up, but that blonde, I can look it up in a moment. Blonde for a man is B-L-O-N-D, and blonde for a woman is B-L-O-N-D-E. We can figure that out later on in this stream. So this lawyer from Silver Spring, Maryland, who then feels a mixture of shock and elation, explains, "It was as if my biological age was watching me. I said to myself, wow, I'm really in my 50s. So she's in her 50s. And then she decided, I'm going to let my hair go grey. I'm kicking off the new me, she thought, as she posted the photo on LinkedIn. Okay, I'm streaming to LinkedIn. Do you ladies feel on LinkedIn that there is a pressure to dye your hair? How do you feel when you are looking for new work, when people are recruiting? Do you feel that you would be discriminated against for having grey hair, for letting your hair be natural? I have a feeling that for men it's easier, but for women there still might be that social pressure, depending as well which country you're from. I do remember reading a few years ago an article talking about the differences for Brazilian women and women from Germany. And the women from Germany, after a certain age, felt quite comfortable not having to feel the pressure of making themselves look pretty for the rest of the world, or thinking about other people's opinions. They were happy after, let's say, or around the menopause time, to what we call in English, grow old gracefully. Gracefully is with nicely. Grow old gracefully. Whereas in Brazil, there was this social pressure to continuously take care of yourself, dye your hair, always trying to make yourself look young. And now that we have Botox and fillers and collagen and all these things, is it getting worse? Is it even less acceptable to look natural? I'd like to get your opinions on it, especially from the women. Do let me know in the comments. It would be great to hear from you, because you are the ones in that situation, and I'd like to get your opinion. So that is from the New York Times, if I'm correct. No, it's from the Wall Street Journal, and that is about women with grey hair and equality at work. Maybe, are you not getting recognition? Are you not getting opportunities? Is it time to leave? Do you feel the pressure? I would like to know your opinions. It might be taboo to say that this is actually true, but I have a feeling that it is actually true. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump to what I mentioned earlier, which was the 5 things not to put on your CV. So let me put that in for the human resources corner, and we're going to have a look. So this is from BuzzFeed, and as a recruiter, I tell people to remove them. 5 things that this Google recruiter says should not be on your resume anymore in 2022. So we'll jump forward and say in 2023. Okay, so Erica Rivera is a Chicago-based senior recruiter at Google, and she recently shared some resume tips that are going viral on TikTok. In a video that has been viewed more than 2 million times, Erica laid out 5 things that people should stop including in their resumes, like right now. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's see if you agree, depending on your industry, or is it something you would agree on. So in the TikTok, she explains that she is a senior recruiter. She's screened thousands of resumes. Resume is very common to say in North America, and over this side of the Atlantic, we are used to saying CV. She screened thousands of resumes, and these things make yours look out of date. Out of date means old. Number 1, your address. We don't need the full address, city and state only. So if you are here in Spain, you don't need to write your full address. Just, for example, we would say Majadahonda, Madrid. For example, it's not necessary to put your street, your number, your postcode. This is what she is saying. That's number 1. 2, the objective statement. Gotta go. That was 1970. We are in 2022. So many of you feel a pressure to put an objective statement. I did a bit of research into this to see, to delve in, to look a bit further. And some advice I got back on the internet was that an objective statement might be more useful for people without much experience. There are other ways, instead of putting an objective statement, to put as 2 lines, but an objective statement seems to be generally for people who with not much experience, like a graduate or maybe somebody who's changing industry. Let me know your opinion. Let me know if you agree in the human resources area, you people that are working in that area. Perhaps it's cultural to Spain, you still want it. Perhaps it is something as well as a recruiter you're not interested in. About the address as well, seems pretty commonsensical to me. It's entire work history since you started your professional career. What we need to focus on and hone in on. It's a good expression, to hone in on. Alone, it doesn't mean anything. H-O-N-E, hone. Doesn't mean anything really on its own, but we say to hone in on. To hone in on. It means to focus on. Is tailoring your search and resume to the role you're applying for. Okay, so that is right. I think that is in relation to the objective statement, which has got to go. Focus on your work history. Next, weak action verbs. Weak action verbs. Give you some examples. I helped. I was responsible for. Nah. I'm quoting here. Nah, N-A-H. This is a kind of way in English to say no. Nah. Can I borrow? Nah. Nah is like saying yeah in English. Nah. Weak action verbs. I helped. I was responsible for. Nah. Take some of these recommendations I'm sharing here and apply them to your resume. Instead of this kind of passive language, Erica recommends using action verbs like I streamlined, I managed, I implemented, I improved, I strategized, I increased, produced, and generated. Okay. I'll show these up onto the screen for you. Some useful words. Perhaps if you're going to revise your CV today, you can use one of these words. That was one of her things. Weak action verbs. Finally, references available upon request. We don't need it. We will ask you if we need your references. Okay. For those of you, yeah, that's a good point. References upon request, not necessary. If they want them, they will tell you and then you can provide them. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with that? Is that something that is more US focused, US centered? Or what do they look for here in Spain? What is important? People from human resources, when you are looking at them, you can comment below. And also, you guys are on LinkedIn here. You are updated. Do you update your CV quite regularly? Which tips do you listen to? Are there too many tips on LinkedIn? Or do you like to update and get some advice and tweak? We say tweak, it's like to make little changes here and there. I noticed I was reading somebody the other day made a comment about again, what to put on their CV, and there were lots of comments saying, oh, that's useful, that's interesting. Then there were people disagreeing, and then there were people agreeing. So it's one thing I always remember was when I asked people before to look at my CV, it's everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion to change something, to put something in. So always good to listen to the advice, and then you don't have to take it if you don't want. Also, I remember one thing I noticed before in the old days was, well, now at LinkedIn, everybody has a profile picture, but before, not putting on a profile picture was very normal when I was doing CVs in the UK. And then I did my Erasmus in France. People were doing their CVs. They were a lot more like the picture was very important. Putting flags beside your language and so on. I think that's a bit outdated now to put a flag beside the languages you speak. But depends. Maybe if you're looking for that type of role to highlight, it could look nice for some people. But Also, this relates back again to the situation of talking about women or men with grey hair. Do you feel it's a bit unfair when you're sending your CV that people can see your profile? Maybe they will judge you. Would you prefer that you didn't even have your name, just like I don't know, an email or something to make it more fair? These are things I'm quite interested in knowing, because there is a lot of discrimination out there from every angle. Prejudice for age, country, sex, all that type of thing. So interested to know what you guys think. Let me know. And I'm going to move on now to the next part, which was, we jump in, the idioms. And I think I found these over here. Yes. It's the one I couldn't find the other day. So let me just reduce me so you guys can see. Excuse me, I went through some of these the other day. I'm going to make this a bit bigger. And we'll just quickly go through. We went through a long shot. That comes from sports, like it means something unlikely to happen. It's a long shot. Back to the drawing board. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. Back to the drawing board. The project is not going as planned. Let's get back to the drawing board and fix what was wrong. To corner the market. To control enough quantity of a product or service that enables one to change the marketplace willingly. Intel has pretty much cornered the market of microprocessors for servers. Their direct competition, AMD, is a distant second. So ideally in your business, you want to corner the market. Hands are tied. When you are unable to carry out any meaningful action because of regulations, rules, or other people with authority. I wish I could help you cut through all this red tape, but my hands are tied. My boss won't let me. Red tape is basically bureaucracy. It depends where it comes from. Bureaucracy from the government, bureaucracy from whoever. Bureaucracy, red tape. Rules and regulations. Up in the air. When things are highly uncertain and a decision has not been made yet. We are hoping to sign the contract by the end of the month, but there are still too many things up in the air we need to deal with first. Okay, everything's up in the air. Okay, it's the same in Spanish, en el aire. To learn the ropes is number 6. To learn the basics of a profession, a specific task or activity. It took her a while to learn the ropes, but now she is confident and we feel that we can count on her to manage her client portfolio effectively. To learn the ropes is to learn how things are done in the company, to learn the way things are. And often somebody will say, James, can you show her the ropes? 7, a learning curve. The process of learning, usually from trial and error, making mistakes. We often say that there can be a steep learning curve, which means that one has to learn things quickly to meet the requirements of a specific job. There was a steep learning curve when I started out trading stock options, but now I feel like I'm finally getting the hang of it. So to get the hang of something is start getting good at something. I'm starting to understand it. I'm getting the hang of it. So it was a steep learning curve. Okay. Right, here's the ones we haven't seen. Let's go through a few of these. To go down swinging, an expression that comes from boxing. To swing means to throw, an arching punch. The expression refers to someone who fights to the very end, who never gives up until it's completely over and there's no possibility of victory. The future of our company is uncertain due to our massive debt. No B sound. Debt. But I can guarantee that we will go down swinging whatever happens. We will not give up easily. So if you can imagine, the boxer is getting beaten and he or she is still swinging punches even as they go down. Number 9, by the book. Do things strictly by the rules. I don't want to take any chances of getting caught by the financial regulators and having to pay significant fines. We have to do everything by the book. Okay, if you imagine somebody going in, talking to their accountant, can we do this? I don't want to pay this tax or something like this. I mean, that would never happen in Spain, but you get the idea. And then the accountant says, it's very important that we do things by the book because we should obey the rules. By the book, by the rules. Number 10, to cut corners. Almost the opposite of the book. This means to do things most quickly and cheaply to save time and money, but often compromising quality and bending the rules. So bending the rules. The company's decision to cut corners ended up costing them dearly when they got caught red-handed. That means they were caught in the act, and they had to pay a huge fine for committing fraud. I think an idea for cutting corners that maybe I can make an illustration is if you think of a company and they are to build a building. Now, they want to cut corners. So they cut corners by using less expensive material, not putting in proper a proper frame, for example. If they need to put in for each column, they need to put 10 steel bars, they put in 6 or 5. So they are cutting costs. They are not obeying the rules. They are using cheap material. They are cutting corners. So it is something that is negative. Next one is very common. Between a rock and a hard place. When there's no easy way out of a solution, whatever you do, whichever option you choose, the outcome will not be ideal. In Spanish, this one would be, I suppose, entre la pared y la espada, something like this maybe. You can tell me in the comments. It's and in English we say between a rock and a hard place. They're both equally difficult. Another one I heard before in relation to this was between the hammer and the anvil, which I think is quite good. So the blacksmith is the person who makes your sword. He makes things from steel. And the anvil is his steel working space, and this is the hammer. So between the hammer and the anvil, both. It's not looking good. So, but the most common in English is I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. Management finds itself between a rock and a hard place after the corruption scandal that erupted. Either they file for bankruptcy and hope that law enforcement forgets about them, or they stay in business and run the risk of going to jail. We'll do one more. From the ground up. To build or start something from nothing. From zero. Building a company from the ground up can bring you great pride if you are successful. Another one you will hear in relation to this would be from scratch. From scratch. Okay, good stuff. Okay, so there's some useful expressions. We'll go back and we'll look at them again. One thing I wanted to look at, and I was reading an article earlier on, was in relation to British people and money, and I'd like to get your opinion. Oh, here's another one we have behind us. A learning curve. Yeah, we just did it. So that was in our list there. What I wanted to talk to you about was I was reading an article about money and how what the situation was. There was a British woman who went to live in France, and she couldn't understand when she bought her house that the people had put bamboo in front of the house. It made the house look pretty bad. There was no reason for it. She couldn't understand it. And then one of her neighbors was talking to her and said, here in France, people try to hide their wealth. They don't like to talk about money. And the author of the article was saying that was the same in Britain before, but now it's becoming more common to talk about money. But there are definitely some areas where people don't like to talk about money, and perhaps you have worked in different countries, and while you're talking to people, you've come across situations. Well, in the UK, they did a survey talking to people, and they found that, let me find it. British people find talking about money taboo. And I can vouch for that. It's something that, well, let's run through some of the things and I'll make comments on them. So, in this study done by the London School of Economics, British people were when asked questions, they were 7 times more likely to talk about sex than they were about money. So they'll give information about their sexual lives, but they won't talk about money. This is more important than, more taboo, more private than their sex lives. Things like rent, talking about your rent, your salary, your savings, your mortgage, things like this, people don't like to talk about. And even it can be common not to talk about it to your partner, with your partner. And a lot of people now, perhaps traditionally, would share a bank account, perhaps. Now it's quite common for people to have separate bank accounts, and might be quite common just not to ask questions. I know in some countries people know exactly what their husband or their partner or their wife does as a job, down to the exact detail. Whereas a lot of people I know in the UK, for example, in the United States, don't exactly know what their husband or wife does as a job. It's like, okay, it's that area, but if they moved department, I probably wouldn't even know. It's something around, but in other countries, they really know. So that's quite interesting. And I do remember, and I'd like to get your comments and your feedback in to know, how do people feel about money and asking questions about money in your country, specifically perhaps here in Spain? It is something that, another thing I noticed was when I came to France and Spain first, was people, and I mentioned this before, having their gardens protected and blocked to the public. Is this something related to gardens? Is this something, is this something related to money? Is this something that you don't want to show people that you have money? It would be seen as crass, perhaps, and people prefer to have the outside of their house looking a bit kind of boring, and then the inside looking as nice as possible. One place I heard about this that is when you go to Morocco and you hear about the riads that you can stay in. Often if we go to Morocco, it's very popular. People want to stay in a nice riad. But I went to Marrakesh a couple of years ago, and the outside of the riad, it's true, it was nothing special. It was kind of boring. It looked a bit like it needed some paint, but then when you go in, it was actually quite nice. And we could probably think from our point of view, why does this not look good from the outside? They need to take care of the outside. They need to make it look as presentable as possible. Let me know your opinions, and let me know how you guys feel about questions about, how much rent do you pay? Is that an okay question to ask? Perhaps if we live in Madrid, for example, you're sharing your knowledge. It's like, that area. Well, look, listen, I live in this area. I live in the center. The rent is, right now we pay 2,300 in that area. That would be, I feel, even with my family, I wouldn't share that information. I wouldn't share. The way we would answer that question is, if someone's asking how much rent do you pay, I would say it's pricey. It's pricey. It's after going up a lot. Yeah, it's pricey. Or it's quite cheap. Quite cheap. Or we have we got a good deal on our mortgage. Thankfully, we're not paying too much. But it's vague. We're not giving the exact information, and we expect you not to ask too many questions. Whereas perhaps some cultures, it's seen as helpful to friends. If I give my true rent and I say, here in Madrid, I'm paying 2,300. A friend can help me and say, you're paying too much. You need to go to this area. You got the same for 2 bedrooms and you'll get this and this. And it's kind of a helping system. It's not so taboo to talk about it. But that could be cultural as well. It could be down to it could be generational. People could have been more open before and they're more private now, or vice versa. Let me know about that. Salary. Your salary is your yearly wage, and you could also say that your pay is what you get at the end of the month. So I haven't received my pay, or in the UK we'll say wages. In the United States they'll say pay, I believe. So pay for the end of the month, or how much you get per hour, and your salary is what you get per year. Savings and mortgage. Okay. So I thought that was quite an interesting thing. I thought it was quite interesting. I remember having been in situations. I do remember actually, and I specifically remember it was a Spanish guy. I wasn't so. I didn't. More like an acquaintance. I didn't know him really well. I knew him, and he said to me, "Oh, how much rent are you paying?" And I couldn't tell if this was a cultural thing or if it was just a personal thing that he would answer, but it made it sound so natural to me that I answered, but I felt a bit angry about it, but I couldn't be angry because I was like, well, I answered, and I was thinking, perhaps it's this country, perhaps this is what they do here, but for us that's an invasion, so and then having lived again in Istanbul, I find that people ask you in a more kind of comparing way, helpful. They'll give you some tips. It seems to be more in a helpful way, not in a... When we want to meterse, to be nosy, it's like, oh, how much rent do you pay? That's more like the UK and Ireland, It's a bit more like, I want to know how much money you have. But I felt in Istanbul that it was more helping. Okay, I'm rabbiting on here. I need coffee. Coffee Morning with James O Reilly, in association with LK Formación, tailor-made solutions for your business. And we're moving on to our next topic, and that is 8 tips for meetings. Okay, I'll keep them brief. I'll try and remember what it was exactly that I saw when I was researching this earlier. But 8 tips. If you have a meeting today, if you can remember one of these, give it a go. So, and let me know how you feel about these. You could have a completely different opinion. And one of these, actually, I want to talk about for this because I gave a different opinion earlier. Okay, dress nicer. Okay, if you're in we're talking about, we can try and introduce online right now how I am, and what you say presencial, which is in-person meetings. So dress nicer, try and wear nicer clothes, try and wear good shoes. Do you agree? I heard before, shoes are your attitude. And I thought it's an expression that's always stayed with me, but I suppose people may agree or disagree, but basically it means if you are wearing nice shoes, or they're nice shoes, not exactly new, but you've scrubbed them up, you've made them nice and clean, this shows your attitude. Perhaps it's more related to men, but equally to women. If you're doing a presentation, personally, it's something for me that I would notice if your shoes were a bit dirty, a bit scruffy. Scruffy means not cleaned. Let me know how you think. Wearing a tie, I don't know, what should women do? Should you dye your hair? But in a meeting, try and dress a bit nicer than usual, okay? If you're having a meeting, perhaps that is more of an important meeting, let's say, because there are so many meetings going on all the time. Let's say this one is a more important one. Dress a bit nicer. Okay, sit up the front. Okay, when you sit up the front of the meeting, if there is the front and the back, let's say, rather, you'll be noticed more. You're getting involved in the meeting. That's where you'll get noticed. Sit up the front, be involved. Okay, that's what you're there for. Sit up front. This one is number 3, which is lean in. So I'm leaning in now. So lean into the table. You'll be noticed more, and it shows that you are interested in what's going on. Because if you lean back, it might show that you are disengaged and you don't want to participate so much. Now, of course, this could be just something you do to be comfortable, but it could give the impression. And of course, when we lean in, when we go forward like this or on the table or whatever, we're showing more interest. So today you could try lean in. So we have dress nicer, sit up front, lean in. Number 4, signal you're about to speak. So make a sign that you're about to speak, and it should be like this. Leaning forward, finger pointing up about the height of your shoulder. And you probably do it naturally anyway, but if you aren't someone who does that naturally, it can be this signal that you want to say something. Don't wait to be invited to speak. So perhaps nobody is going to ask you to speak. Perhaps there are people who are there who just like to speak more. You have a moderator who is perhaps not great at looking around and saying, James, you didn't say anything yet. Would you like to give your opinion on this? If you want to say something, you're at a meeting. That's why you're there. Get in and say something. Don't wait to be asked. You're there. You're expected that you can jump in and say something when you want. Don't ask for permission. This is something I mentioned earlier, which you could say, sorry, can I say something? Perhaps don't ask for permission. Do you agree with this? I mentioned before that we say sorry as a kind of, sorry, can I say something here? Sorry, I'd like to say something. But saying this could be seen as asking for permission. Like we said, you're at the meeting, you are invited, you are expected to say something. Just get in and say what you want to say. Which do you agree with? Saying, excuse me, I'd like to say something, or just getting in, finding where there's a break in conversation, where there's a slight silence, and you get in. You're not invited to speak, just get in and say something. Which do you agree with? Don't ask for permission. Just, that's why you're there. Get in, say something. An example would be, I want to add something here. That is a very good point that you make, but you're forgetting that we won't be available. We have other projects at that time. So getting in, you're not sorry, you're just getting in and making yourself visible. Making eye contact. Making eye contact is more commonly associated with people of a higher status, while not making contact, eye contact is seen as more lower status. So you want to make eye contact with people to show that you're serious. And I think that is generally probably a positive thing to do. It doesn't have to look aggressive. It's just more serious, making eye contact with the people you are talking to. Instead of saying, can I say something? I think that maybe we could do things a bit better, like keeping my eyes down. It's not so, okay, look at the people you're talking to. I think what we should do is focus on getting our priorities straight and getting in and taking the opportunities when we can. Okay, eye contact. And then finally was speak up in meetings. Okay, just make your voice carry a bit more, make yourself be heard, project your voice around the room, and obviously but projecting your voice, but also saying something. If you're not saying something in a meeting, you are invited for a reason. You are there for a reason. So say something. Speak up in this sense. Speak up has two meanings. Make your voice project more, like I said in the beginning. But I think in this case, it would be more speak up. It's like say something. Okay, so if you're at a meeting, they might be thinking, why are we inviting this person? And you might be happy not to be invited, to be honest. But if it's something that for your career you need to be at these meetings and it's good that you're there, say something. You are there for a reason. So let me run through them again. Maybe you can pick one today and just try and do it. Make a little change. I remember one thing before. I always remember, it's just one tip I remember from a list was ask your colleagues a question. So like ask them, instead of just saying hello, maybe ask them if you know they have children, like say, how's your girl getting on in second grade, or she's in second grade, I believe, how's she getting on? And so kind of like letting people know you care about them. Now that stuck with me, and in this list, for example, today, maybe you'll get one that will stick with you. So dress nicer, number one. Number two, sit at the front. Be noticed. Lean in. Okay, make it look like you're listening. Signal when you want to speak. Don't wait to be invited to speak. It might not happen. So just when there's a little break in conversation, get in and say something. Don't be sorry. Don't say, can I speak? Just you're there. So say what you want to say without asking permission. Making eye contact with your colleagues and saying something while you're there. Okay? Don't just be a passenger in the meeting. Say something in the meeting. Okay, good stuff. So let me get back to my list. And I think I have one more thing I wanted to talk to you about before I go. I put it in my email earlier. Okay. No, that's it. We've gone through our list today. I've covered everything. So let me just quickly recap what we went through. The news, 5 things you shouldn't put on your resume anymore. Talking about grey hair in business. Women letting their hair go naturally grey. Is it a good idea? Is there discrimination against women? Let me know. English idioms we went through. Money, talking about money with British people is taboo. Don't ask them how much they earn. Don't ask them how much rent they pay. Don't ask them. And I assume it goes the same for Americans. Well, we can look at that later. British people are private about money and private about their wealth. It's not seen well to show it off. And it seems it's the same for the French from the article I read. Even down to the point where they don't know how much their partner or husband or wife earns because they share and they just put in what they're supposed to put in and so on. And then 8 tips for meetings. Finally, yes. Quickly before we go, we've got a few more minutes. Yes, I missed this. This is how to say things in a better way in your job. So let's say, for example, I've got about 5 of these that I want to look at. Right. So what we have is 5 ways to say things a bit better. Okay, in your job. Let's try and see if you can use them. We need to fix this problem. We need to resolve this issue. I think we should do these things. I think we should use these strategies. Let me quickly do this. As this is related to human resources, so I want to do it like this. Let's start again. 5 ways to use more useful language in the office. Make it more business-like. We need to fix this problem. We need to resolve this issue. I think we should do these things. I think we should use these strategies. 3. We need to finish the report for Wednesday. The deadline for the report is next Wednesday. Number 4. We need to give it to our manager. We need to submit it to our manager. 5. I have lots of work. I have a heavy workload. Quickly again, we need to fix this problem. We need to resolve this issue. I think we should do these way I can answer them. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can still leave them for me later, and I can get back to you either on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it's been helpful for you today. Have a fantastic Monday, and I will catch up with you again on Wednesday. Have a good one.